Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Today we're going to do top 10 chronographs under $500. And I do apologize, this is long overdue, but hopefully with this 10 suggestions, it will be worth the wait. Now, a quick disclaimer, a few rules before we get into this. I'm only going to include one watch per brand because otherwise it would just be Citizen, Seiko, Seiko. And it's a little bit unfair. The next little point that I should mention is that these are all watches I have had personal, first-hand experience with. Many of them I've owned, because I know there seems to be this awful, ghastly trend on YouTube of talking about watches or recommending watches people have never seen in the flesh or had extensive experience with, and worse than that, talking badly about watches. Oh, and third of all, I almost forgot wristwatch check. Now I'm gonna skip it today because I'm wearing, well, you probably know, if you know me, you know what this is, and it's definitely, yeah, I've probably given the game away, but it's in the it's in the list. So I'll reveal my wristwatch check a little bit later on. Anyway, let's crack on, shall we? Okay, at number 10 is a watch from Citizen, which I think some of you are probably going to be quite surprised at this, considering its size. It is a big watch indeed, at 47 millimeters, the BL 540052A, and it has Citizen's legendary Eco Drive technology. Now, Citizen are a very important brand. They are Japan's second largest watch manufacturer. They were founded 100 years ago in 1918. Despite this watch's large size, it does wear a little bit smaller. Now, I was a larger chap myself. If you saw my before and after video, my weight loss video, this was in the larger days, shall we say. But what this watch offers is so impressive, I had to put it in the list. First of all, a wonderful V-shaped layout to the sub-dials, this kind of hobnail raised fixed bezel, but inside we have an internal pilot's rotating slide rule. Now you can get this in a choice of dial colors. I used to have the silver dial because I love the black, the black sub-dial look. This watch features a chronograph that measures up to 60 minutes, a perpetual calendar, dual time zone, a 12-hour and 24-hour time. It's water resistance 100 meters, as well as a 1/20th of a second accuracy on the chronograph. It's a very sporty look. It has that Breitling Bentley aesthetic, and accessing all that features is quite intuitive. The only downfall is that it has mineral crystal. However, you also have a second crown at the 8 o'clock to access that internal rotating bezel. The price on this is an astounding $235. The quality of this watch, quite incredible for that price, I have to say. Obviously, entirely stainless steel. In fact, I think every single watch we're going to talk about is stainless steel, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But yeah, if you're not familiar with Eco Drive, it's, in my opinion, it's the best solar powered technology out there. For example, on a full charge, it can go up to 6 months powering the watch. Your typical solar power, I think the Casio and Seiko and all the rest of them, it's about 30 days. So very, very efficient. It's a proprietary technology. There's various kind of levels of Eco Drive, but this has the hibernation mode. I remember when I had it, I popped it in a drawer, didn't wear it for a while, took it back out, and I thought it had stopped entirely. It was broken, but it had gone into hibernation mode. It sensed that it was out back in the light and started ticking again. And it has an secondary internal quartz clock that makes sure that the accuracy is deadly, even when you've had it in a drawer for several months. Very cool indeed. So it's the caliber E820. Absolutely fantastic. I highly, highly recommend it, but obviously only if you've got the wrists for it. Number 9 is another very impressive bit of technology from Casio. Now, Casio needs no introduction. They're founded in 1946. Huge tour de force, many iconic watches under their belt. We only have to look at, Back to the Future or the F91W, for example. The list is endless. They had an offshoot line of watches focusing on analog-only watches, I think in the early 2000s with the Edifice line. And this is the Casio Edifice EQ S500DB1A1. And I wish they gave these watches better names. Who's going to ever remember this? Now, I owned the black PVD version before I had the channel, and then I bought the steel to review. Unfortunately, I never got round to it. Sadly, it takes me a good week to film, edit, prep, research, you know, put it all together. And I have to make room for more pressing watches. That maybe there's a time issue, or it's really scheduling. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. I had to include Edifice because Edifice is one of the most underrated when it comes to cutting edge quartz technology. This watch is insanely complex. First of all, it's solar powered, has 100 meters water resistance, world time, 29 time zones, plus UTC, daylight saving, on and off, beeper alarm, 1/100th of a second chronograph, and you actually see the seconds spinning around. It's really cool. A day-date display, full auto calendar that's pre-programmed until the year 2099. 12 and 24-hour formats, power saving functions, so it will actually start to tick every 2 seconds or 3 seconds, something like this. Low battery warning. This is the module 5123. It's got 4 pushers, this kind of angular style design. You rarely get a massive manual because it takes a while to get to know how it works. Only downfall is it has mineral crystal, but the most awesome thing about this watch is that the accuracy is deadly. It will actually readjust itself every so often, because it has little mechanical components inside, and this I think is not on every Edifice, but this one has it with the module 5123. Sorry, it will detect when it's not accurate and reset itself, which is just insanely cool. I mean, come on, and the price is $171, so it's it's very, very cool, and I still kind of regret I didn't review it. It's so underrated. It's got a very kind of sporting racing chronograph look. Oh, and I should mention, the Edifice, they sponsor the Red Bull team. Well, they did. I don't know if they still do, but yeah, so they got that kind of tie-in. It is 42 millimeters. Very thin, I think 12 or 13. I can't remember, but it wore wonderfully well. Can get it on the bracelet. Bracelet's a bit jingly jangly. I recommend the rubber, actually. So it's got all that inherent innovation of Casio in analog form, which is what Edifice is all about. Okay, number 8, moving on. Now, you guys know one of my favorite iconic watches from Germany is the Maxbill from Junghans, of course. Unfortunately, out of this price range, 1,000, 2,000 and beyond. However, Junkers have one with a Swiss Ronda 5030 for an astonishing $260. Now, it's close to the Maxbill. It won't have that pure, you know, historically correct Maxbill signature features. It's got a nice, clean aesthetic, 40mm size, which is definite crowd pleaser, only 10mm tall, perfect dress watch kind of chronograph, piston head pushers, cream and black dial as well, comes on a leather strap, domed Hesselite, which gives that wonderful vintage distortions. The best thing is, and probably why I had to include it, is it's made in Germany with a Swiss quartz. The Rondas are fantastic. I can't recommend them highly enough. The quality is there. Now, Junkers, they're owned by Point Tech, and Point Tech own, I think, Messerschmitt, Junkers, and what was the other one? Oh yeah, which we're about to mention in just a moment. How can I forget? Graf Zeppelin. So it has a 12-hour chronograph, very clean, very tastefully done, classic Bauhaus, quite useful 55-minute graduations, 12 hours towards the center with a date at the 4 o'clock. This is a great alternative to those movement and what's the other, Daniel Wellington fashion watches, because at least you're getting something that's made in Germany, that the quality is assured. Number 7. So we talked about the sister brand, here we have Graf Zeppelin, and this is the 86803. Now you can get this, I think, in a black dial, but I prefer the cream dial because the entire dial is loomed up. It's quite impressive when you see it. Now Graf Zeppelin, as the name suggests, refers to those beautiful flying aircraft of the 1920s and 30s. Pointek obviously bought the rights to the name. So it has that deco period aesthetic, a telemeter and tachometer there. Hardened mineral this time, 50 meters water resistance. Also get an alarm, very 1920s, 1930s Breguet style hands. So a little bit more formal, it's very stylish. Beautiful V-shaped layout to the subdials. This time, however, unlike the previous watch, we have the Ronda 5130D, so we also have the additional alarm. 11 millimeters thick, so great dressy chronograph. The only downfall, and probably the, well, it's a good thing because otherwise I'd have to buy it, it is 42 millimeters, but it really gives that period look. Wonderfully, and I think with an expensive crocodile strap it looks the kipper's knickers, definitely. So again, you get that made in Germany quality, a great affordable price, a distinctive look, a name brand that references an incredible history of aviation heritage, and the functionality and reliability. I mean, what more could you want? Okay, at number 6 we have Hemel, and this is the HFT 20, the VK64 configuration. Now, there are two versions of this watch. Marvin, my good friend, he's actually from New York. It's a micro brand, and I had to put a micro brand in here. These are wonderful. I actually was lent one of these. I borrowed both versions. There's a more expensive version, which is around about $1,000, that has the column wheel automatic chronograph. Very, very impressive. This is the quartz version with the VK64, which of course is a mecha quartz. They are larger at 42 millimeters, quite tall. I think they were 13 or 14 millimeters. What I love about them is the style. They have this kind of Breguet Type 20 look about them. Very, very classic, beautiful layout. You can get a choice of the GMT bezel or a 60-minute timing bezel. 120 click with a choice of either ceramic or the brushed stainless steel. A lovely onion style crown, referencing of course classic aviation pieces. Superluminova, flat sapphire glass with AR coating, 100 meters water resistant. Very solid feeling. They come on a riveted strap, again kind of a little nod to the classic Fliegers. It's a beautiful design piece with little hints of orange in the seconds hand, a red triangle on the bezel. Orange, of course, being very important to the brand because Marvin is of Dutch heritage, so there's always a little, you know, he thinks about all of these things, and I really appreciate it. And it's such a clean, classic look. You could never go wrong with it. And I love the fact that none of the numerals are cut off. It's a wonderful sense of balance. It's an outstanding watch. And there's even cross-hatching on the pushers. So a lot of thought has gone into it, and that's what you want from a good micro brand. My only criticism is obviously I wish it wasn't so tall and a bit smaller, but I say that about every watch. And I can unequivocally say I think Hemel is one of the best affordable micro brands out there, in my opinion. I reviewed their diver recently, and what was the first watch they did? I think they had a field watch. It was quite a few years ago now, but forgive me, my memory's going. And those, I think you have to order directly from Hemel's website. They're about $450, which I think is great value for money. Okay, number 5, and it's probably the most historically important watch we're going to talk about today, and it could only be the Bulova Lunar Pilot Chronograph. This is an absolutely wonderful story. So Bulova, you've probably noticed they featured heavily on the channel recently. I bought the Space View. I love Bulova, I really do. They're from New York, founded all the way back in 1875, now part of Citizen actually, and their history with NASA and spaceflight goes all the way back to the very early days of space exploration. If you saw my unboxing of my Space View, I talked about their astronaut, the Actron astronaut, used by pilots in some of the fastest planes ever made. The release of that was even delayed because of the CIA. Didn't want people getting that technology. But anyway, fast forward to the 70s, the original lunar pilot chronograph was worn on the Apollo 15 mission by Mission Commander David Scott. We all know about the Omega Speedmaster, the moon watch. Well, this is the only other watch that was actually worn on the moon as well. David Scott's Speedmaster, the crystal, actually popped off, so he had to use his backup watch, which was, of course, the Bulova. Now, that watch actually sold at auction for about $1 million. So Bulova decided to re-release it, almost identical to the original. Beautiful matte finish. I love the pushers on this. Very distinctive. Sapphire glass, 13.5 thick. Water resistance is 50 meters. I really adore the raised section for the tachometer there that is under the crystal. And then, of course, extremely legible superluminova. Now, we all know Bulova and their quite astonishing history of you know, the precursor to quartz, and they haven't stopped doing that. They're still innovating. You know, we have the precisionist movements, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to recommend them. But historically, it's just so cool. I mean, many watch companies would murder to have something like this. The Arrow seconds hand is very reminiscent to the Speedmaster, in fact. But this is no ordinary quartz movement at all. This is a high-performance, high-frequency quartz operating at 262 kilohertz, thus allowing it to have incredible accuracy, coupled with that extremely legible monochromatic scheme, fifth of a second increments on the scales. It was a tool built for the ultimate task, unparalleled accuracy, and obviously endurance. Why haven't I bought one? Well, it's 45 millimeters wide, and although I have tried one, yeah, I just can't pull it off. Although I covet it like crazy. 13.5 thick, surprisingly only 20 millimeters lug width. It doesn't wear that big, I have to say. It wears a lot smaller. And it has this kind of retro sci-fi look. It reminds me a bit like Silent Running or something like that. Yeah, it's very, very 70s, but it does, it's very, very cool. It's nice to have an option here that literally is of such historic importance. The Tropical from Undone. Now, I recently reviewed this. I am actually quite a big fan of Undone. I think what they've achieved, quite remarkable, to be honest, and unlike anything out there on the market, and hence why I had to include it. Now, my pick of the bunch is the Tropical, because I do like the choices you get with the different dial types. The whole concept was to have a kind of I guess you could say faux aged look. As you guys know, Tropical dials is so highly desired, but with their offering you don't have the risk or the high price tag, the performance issues, or any of that. But I've included them at this position because they offer a bespoke customization that nobody else, especially at this level, can compete with. Coupled with the fact that, with the exception of the movement, they're entirely produced in-house, which if you've been or visited to factories and you know the costs involved, the machinery, the renting a place, training of staff, the upkeep costs, just the amount of investment needed in infrastructure to offer something like this is very admirable. So they're 41 millimeters in diameter, 13.5 thick. You get a hardened domed K1 crystal, a very classic Speedmaster inspired look. Lovely UFO shape to it, and you can specify to have your initials or something on the dial, custom printing on the case back. These are 30 meters water resistant, and ultimately I think they provide a great option for a gift, especially if you know other watch enthusiasts. It doesn't even have to be other watch enthusiasts, but I think adding that personal touch to a watch is such class, because you can have something put on the back, maybe to a loved one. Nobody else does that. Well, yeah, unless you go super high end, but of course the price tag. So it's a great gift option, And they've just released, I think, a regatta chronograph. Unfortunately, I can't recommend them because, as you guys know, I only can recommend stuff I've seen in the flesh. But going on their past offerings, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. And I have also reviewed their previous, the Urban Killy, which is even more customizable. It's actually quite addictive going on their website and, you know, changing the hands, the style of the dial, the straps, the finish. It's a really enjoyable process, I have to admit. Inside we got the VK64, another mecha quartz. It's also a flyback, deadly accurate, has that slightly mechanical sweep to it, so you get a little bit of that feeling of soul, you know, mechanical soul to it. And these do vary in price. Obviously, the more customization and the more detailed and things you have done, it's gonna push up the price. But I think they are incredible value for money. It can only be the Dan Henry 1964 Gran Turismo. I recently reviewed it. Outstanding watch. I just adore it. I ended up going for the Panda dial myself. I think there's 4 choices. You can get no date, 38mm size. In fact, the scale and size of this is perfect. It really is. 12.9mm thickness, sapphire coated double domed mineral glass with anti-reflective coating. Wonderful blued hands on some of them, but they're actually faux blued, but they do the trick. Quality is very impressive. They only cost $250, which is insanely affordable, and I think excellent value for money. Got that wonderful DB5 engraving on the back. A little nod to the film that came out in 1964, of course. Water resistance is 50 meters. Again, we have the VK63 Mecha Quartz, made by Seiko. 24-hour indicator, 60-minute chronograph. The look is very kind of Breitling top time, slightly Omega Seamaster 321 chronograph looking as well. Look, also it has a striking resemblance to some of the classic Hoyer and Zeniths of the 60s. It's an enticing, elegant look that will always be desirable, and you don't have the high price tag or the risk of these extremely expensive desired vintage watches. The same with the aforementioned Undone. The black dial is matte, but the rest of them, especially that dazzling grey, have this kind of sunburst look. Absolutely gorgeous. Un capolavoro. Shout out to my good friend Dan Henry if you're watching. If you're not aware of Dan Henry is a world-renowned collector with an incredible website. It basically has a great overview of all these classic timepieces. It's a great resource for learning about watches especially. He's a famous collector, and he took all that knowledge and experience and applied it finally to his own brand. You know, I've been a fan ever since. I love all his watches. I can't recommend them enough. Very affordable, very fun. Yeah, had to, right? Number 2, it is the Seaguar 1963. I mentioned them recently with the skeleton watch, which was very, very affordable. They are a Chinese manufacturer. In fact, they're the largest manufacturer of mechanical movements in the world. They were started in 1955. They've exploded, making watch movements for many, many big brands that we all know and love. Timex, for example, in the Marlin recently. But they've also gone on to make tourbillons, all kinds of stuff. It's fascinating. Now, I had to add this because inside is, believe it or not, a mechanical manual wind column wheel chronograph, which is, you know, the highly desired. And they based it on the 175 Venus, the Swiss movement, of course. What they did in the 60s, they actually bought the equipment from Switzerland, took it over to China, and they started producing it themselves. They were fed up of their dependency on buying movements from the Swiss, which of course is incredibly expensive. And it takes a lot of skill to build these correctly. So you have to respect what they've achieved here. The only column wheel I can think of is the Seiko one under 1,000. And then of course there's a Longines one that's around about 2,000. But Yeah, so it's just unheard of at $350, which is what this costs. On top of that, I think there's a 42mm version, and my favorite is the 38mm. I have reviewed it a long time ago in one of my early rudimentary reviews. Renamed it the ST19 movement, has scratch-resistant sapphire, which is just unbelievable at this price. Faux blued hands. They have actually decorated the movement. If you get a display back, it is also faux blued screws in the movement. Cream color, wonderfully done with that red Chinese star. Comes on an olive NATO strap. And now, if you want to have a column wheel chronograph and you want to see that butter smooth operation when it engages the actuation of with the pusher, you can actually turn it around and see it in action. It's mesmerizing and incredible value for money. I mean, undeniably so. The only criticism with Seaguar is their quality control leaves a little bit to be desired. However, at this price range, I'd be insane not to add it. It also has quite elegant gold applied indices. Operates at 21,600 vibrations an hour. I think the power reserve is about 45 hours. The case is very minimal, no nonsense. Yeah, it's an endearing little watch. And the name 1963 references the original that was made for the Chinese Air Force way back in 1963. Okay, so who's at number one? Well, guys, if you know the channel and you know me, it could only be old Flighty, dear old Flightmaster. And I know I'm going to get a lot of people's knickers in a twist because, well, the truth is there's many amazing chronographs at this price range from Seiko. The Flightmaster, it still is under $500. Prices are rising. It has the caliber 7T62. It's quartz. I erroneously have said many times that it's mecha quartz. It's kind of trying to be a mecha quartz, but it's not. And it has that 1/5 of a second sweep to the split second chronograph. Hardlex domed mineral, which is Seiko's own proprietary crystal. That also gets a lot of flack, I think unfairly. I've had mine and I've used it as a beta watch, and it still looks brand new, but you get that lovely distortions. 200 meters water resistance, weird screw down pushers, screw down crowns. So it's that do-it-all watch. You can even use that little sub dial with the two hands at the 6 o'clock for a second time zone. And an alarm. Date, wonderfully complex look. Okay, not everybody's cup of tea. Bidirectional scales, you can do all kinds of calculations with it. Ground speed, distance, fuel burn, wind set, basic division, multiplication, unit conversions, all kinds of stuff. About 13 millimeters thick, 41 millimeters in diameter. Great crowd pleaser. It isn't without its limitations, that annoying 21 millimeter lug width, and the way they've put the spring bars so close to the case. It is an annoyance, but I'm willing to forgive it because it's so usable, it's so rugged, it's so accurate, and yet all these fantastic usable features. Difficult not to love. The amount of complexity and detail in that dial, from the applied logo to the very precise printing, it's just pure class, and it always has been. I also like the playful yellow of the second hand. Now today I've just got it in a plain black, kind of matching my shirt to be honest. But yeah, even if it was over $500, I'd still probably buy it, even though against my better judgment. The white and blue version is extremely rare. Prices of those are skyrocketing. I kind of regret selling mine now. There is the gold tone version, which is very kind of Marmite in its effect. I got to admit, I kind of like it. I got a secret crush on that watch. God, yeah. It does come on the bracelet. I'm not a fan of the bracelet. I just don't like the look of it, but it does have quite a solid double push button deployment and fold over. Very dependable, rugged, makes a great travel watch because of the complications. The alarm isn't very loud. Works well as a kind of reminder, so to speak. 60-minute chronograph, date at the 3 o'clock. Despite its large size, it is quite slender, about 12 millimeters. Seiko is a brand that needs no introduction, so I'm not going to waste any time getting into it. One of the most important watch brands of all time. The level of innovation and historic importance is undeniable. I just love mine. I never tire of it. It's a keeper in my own collection, and I urge you to buy one sooner rather than later. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Please do nominate your favorites in the comments below, because obviously I can only include 10, but there's so many out there. Let's try and help out as many people as we can. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.
This is a public service reminder for the good Gentry. Please follow us on Instagram, join the Facebook UGWC group, and click on the bell to keep notified of new videos. Don't forget to keep it positive, keep it Gentry, onwards and upwards. Thank you.